In this video, I want to talk about 3 lucrative ways that you can make money with your camera outside of the space of basically general weddings and portrait work. We are going to be talking about portrait work, but more on the business side. Welcome to the MagMod channel. My name is Pye. I thought we'd do something a little bit different this time and talk a little more about business. In this video, I'm not only going to give you the ideas of these niches, but we're going to step into it. I'm going to give you a gear kit and recipe guide where we talk about what I think you need as a starter kit. I'm also going to give you several AI prompts to help you as you start this journey, to kind of think about it, to do market research, help you understand pricing, everything. Okay, let's get into the niche number 1 that I would recommend you look into, which is brand portraits and content creation. And we're talking about doing this for basically businesses, right? The beautiful thing is that I don't care whether you are a small business or a Fortune 500 company. Every single business has a massive need for content. They need it to be able to market their services and their products. This means that this space is basically only growing, especially as more and more platforms and more need for content appears. As far as what you can make on this side, it's kind of limitless. And I wouldn't necessarily structure my packages this way, but I want to give you an idea of what typical day rates might look like. So at an entry level, meaning you're just starting in this space, you can expect somewhere around $750 to $1,500 as a day rate. On the mid-tier, $1,500 to $3,000, and at the established side, we're talking $3,500 to $7,500 plus as a day rate. The beautiful thing about this is not only do a lot of these clients become retainer clients, so they bring you back over and over, but on top of that, when it comes to brand portraits, you can create multi-day shoots depending on the business's goals and their needs. And this allows you to basically stack up those day rates and get to really high packages, okay? What are examples of this? So I'm going to include a few of those. These are examples of environmental portraits for a local plumbing company. So again, images that they could use throughout their website. This would be like a nice hero image on their website. These would be images they could potentially use on social media, team portraits, all of that kind of stuff, right? I know we said we step outside of weddings primarily, but if you are a wedding photographer, I want you to think about this because we often don't. So a lot of venues, especially the more established venues, they do have a marketing budget. This was a commercial shoot that we did, basically a commercial styled shoot for the Langham Hotel, where we had multiple ethnicities of couples, and we basically went through and created mock weddings for each of these different couples that they wanted to market to. So this is another example of brand portraits. This would be an example from like a coach or influencer level, right? Like creating images for their social media, for their website, for their book, for their goals, whatever they have. We want to kind of step into the role of a creative director and help them create images that tie to their specific goals. Okay, so let's go into the gear list in terms of a brand portrait starter kit. This is just the baseline of kind of what I would do or what I would recommend in terms of jumping into this space, okay? On the camera and lens side, a full frame camera with dual card slots. This to me is kind of your first key element. We do also want a backup camera as well in case your first goes out. But the dual card slots is important so that you have in-camera backup just in case anything happens, okay? For lenses, I'm typically using like a 35, 85, and 50 prime for this because these portrait sessions, like when we do brand portraits, it's not like a wedding or an event where we're rushed, where we need to zoom in and out. So I'm using prime lenses and kind of slowing down a bit, aiming for cinematic quality and for image quality. By the way, if I were to say which 2 lenses, it'd be a 35 and a 50. I could do without the 85. It's just nice to have in case you're also going to be doing some, say, headshots or close-up portraits. Lighting, this one's key. I would say at least one 250 to 500 watt second mono light. So this is a larger light. I like using the Profoto B10, B10 Plus, that kind of light. And I do recommend it be battery powered because you're not always going to be near a power source when you do this. A lot of these environmental portraits are on location. But that's what I like to use. You pick whatever you'd like, whether it's Godox, whether it's another brand, it doesn't matter. But something that tends to be a little bit higher power because we're often working outdoors and we want to modify outdoors, we need more power. I'd also say that a second 250, 500 watt second monolight would be a great add, but it's going to be optional. The reason why it's optional is because in almost every situation, I can light with just one light, but it's nice sometimes and sometimes even necessary to have a second. So I'd say it's optional, not necessarily when you start out, but it would be a nice add to have that second piece. Of course, to go along with them, 1 or 2 C-stands with their support, so like sandbags and accessories. These are kind of easy to understand, backup batteries. One of the things I wanted to mention was a laptop and tether cable, especially when this is a beautiful value add that you can add onto your packages, is the having a DIT station and basically a place to review images. So they can actually have a loop where they can look through. You can not only be sorting images while you're kind of capturing, they're going right in, but they can also be selecting their favorites as they go. That's kind of a nice add-on feature for shoots. In terms of modifiers, my go-to for these types of shoots is going to be the Magbox Pro 42 Octa. I'm going to pair it with the grid, with the case, and I'm also going to add correction gels to it. The reason why is because a lot of times we're going to be doing environmental portraits. Not only will be in different lighting environments, sometimes with tungsten, sometimes outdoors, sometimes with funky fluorescent lights. We need those gels to be able to correct our main light source. On top of that, I want something larger and a bit softer because that's usually the look that I'm going to be leaning towards most. And I need the grid to be able to control light spill to maintain the look of the environment. Okay, so we need all three of those. One of the things that I really like recommending as well is bring along a flag. A flag is going to be a black square, or you can use a reflector to block light, as well as a scrim. It can be, again, a square with a pin that goes into a C-stand, or you can just use a standard scrim. But we want that for just a bit of light control, especially when we're outside. Okay, so those are my recommendations there. Now, this is the fun part. I've given you an AI prompt. I do a lot of business coaching development. I have a full mentorship program with well over 300 alumni. One of the big things that I do is inside of the curriculum, I create AI prompts to basically do all the heavy lifting for my alumni. I want to give you a taste of that here. So I made a prompt to basically help you understand in each of these spaces what the market environment looks like, and to give you ideas of like what would typical packages look like and offer structures. What are some of the top competitors in the space? What are they doing well? What unique angle and position that I can enter this space? And based on my goals and my personality, would this be a smart thing for me to go into? So grab this entire thing. You can throw it into ChatGPT, into Grok, any AI tool that you love using, and run it. All you got to do is just replace the location with yours, and it's going to give you a lot of great ideas. I want to keep this thing moving though, so play with that on your own. Let's jump now to niche number 2. So this is the second space I would consider if I wanted to make a good amount of money with my camera and not go into space of wedding and portraits. It's commercial and executive headshots. I love this space for so many reasons. But look, again, every company needs them. They need to be updated regularly as well, which makes it great for retainer work, especially when companies are a bit larger and they're hiring people. They always need refreshed portraits. They need new portraits, everything. The other thing I love in this space is just multi-person shoots. You can do headshots on an individual level, or you can go find a company that's got thousands of employees or 100 employees or however big and literally schedule quarterly shoots, which makes this fantastic. Now, I'm giving you kind of typical pricing on a per person basis. So an entry level pricing would be like $100 to $350 per person, mid-tier $350 to $750, and premium $750 to $1,200. Generally, when you start adding in, like we're doing 20 per, like if we're doing like 10, 20 portraits in one company, we'll include like a little bit of a discount based on the volume that we're doing, right? If it's 50 people, if it's 100 plus people, it's not $1,200 times 100. We'll take what our typical rate is and we'll offer like a kind of an efficiency bonus for being able to do them all together. So those are ideas. Examples are pretty simple. You guys have seen headshots before. These are all headshots that would work for not only individuals like small businesses, but also coaches, creators, big businesses, etc. They're just kind of typical headshots, okay? For the gear list on this side, the camera and lens, camera doesn't change at all, so we don't need to spend time there. But with the lens, I would go with an 85 prime or a 7200. Both those work totally fine. We want it to be a little bit longer so that we're not getting distortion on facial features, okay? Lighting wise, again, I would say that one monolight is a must. I have encountered, certain scenes and situations. Most of the time I'm using one monolight, maybe a scrim or a bounce. There are some situations where you'll want a second light, especially when you're trying to light the background as well. You'll want a second light. Okay, so I'm putting that as optional. Again, the same thing for support, 1 to 2 C-stands, depending on how many lights you have. Accessories don't really change except for the tripod. If you are running a stationary headshot setup, it's really nice to have a tripod so you have the same kind of frame each and every time. It just does a lot of the heavy lifting for you, quite literally, since it's also holding your camera. The modifiers on this side, I'm going to give you 2 options of what I would go with, okay? I'm either going to do the Magbox Pro 42 Octa or the Beauty Dish XL20, And it depends on the vibe that you like to have. Like if your vibe tends to be more punchy, like more contrasty, this aesthetic, then I'd go with, say, the beauty dish, right? If your vibe tends to be more soft, something like this, more natural like this, then I would go with the larger 42-inch Octa. So pick one of those options as basically the modifier for your main light. You'll notice that I didn't include grids on this because usually when I'm doing portraits, like headshot type portraits, generally we don't need to have that kind of light control. We're not trying to go with dramatic, especially when we're talking about commercial portraits. We generally don't need that. Also, I think with the beauty dish, it does come with it anyway, so you had it if you want it. But most of the time with this, I'm not using that. I would still recommend the grids and correction gels just in case you happen to be in certain situations where you had a lot of overhead light that you need to correct for. Okay, but I'll still say that's optional. You could run without it if you needed to. All right, so similarly with the AI prompt, you're just gonna go ahead and copy it, replace the location, drop it in, and you'll get some really awesome results and ideas of how you can push into this space. One of my favorite things, by the way, for that conversation that you have with the AI is to say, can you ask me some questions, or can I give you information of who I am, my personality, and can you tell me if this would be a good fit for me as an artist? That's one of my favorite things to do as well, just to make sure it's a good niche fit. All right, so niche number 3 that I would consider is corporate events and conferences. Again, they happen all the time, right? Similar to weddings, but they generally tend to be shorter days, much less pressure, much less stress, and they still pay really well. On the entry level, 500 to 1,000. Usually we kind of do half day rates on this side because, I mean, there are a lot of events that are full days, but you'll have a lot of corporate events that might just be 2 or 3 hours long. So we generally quote in terms of like half day rates. Mid-tier, 1,000 to 2,000, and then specialists would be like 2 to 5,000 plus, okay? Easy ways to basically take your exact same, especially if you do have experience on the wedding side, you can take the exact same tools into this space and do really well with this. An example, this is a client that I shot ages ago. This was actually, I think, for State Farm. They brought in Kenny Loggins and they had like a private concert essentially for their top performers. Really easy client. It was great to shoot. It was so much easier than a wedding, and they pay well. Here's another example of like a local, this was a larger, I think, women's only group. And I forgot what this was for exactly, but kind of influencer style event. They brought in speakers on a specific industry, and we just went in and took just nice natural portraits of like what was going on of everything, right? Gear list on this side. Again, camera stays the same. On the lens side though, I'd recommend here a 24-70 and 7200. I'm kind of approaching this in a similar way that I would a wedding, where there are going to be more, I wouldn't say fast paced, but you have to be able to go wide for a group shot and then go in a little bit tighter for a candid. And you have to be able to have a 7200 be able to stand back and zoom in when you're shooting across a group, like you're trying to get speakers. We don't want to be in the action trying to shoot the speakers. That would be obnoxious when it comes to like corporate events. For lighting, this is where the kit really goes over to basically like a wedding kit. Like I'm going to say you need one mounted speed light. So it's generally a 60 watt second speed light. Just any speed light is fine. Just one mounted speed light on your camera. That's going to be for bouncing, for general portrait work, that kind of stuff. And then I would recommend 2 off-camera flashes. So I'd usually go with anything between a 60 to 200 watt second speed light. So this can be a standard flash, like a Profoto A10. It could be a Godox flash. This could be a standard Canon flash, up to a 200 watt second one. This would be like the 8200 or something like that. Any of those will work totally fine. I would recommend grids for them so that we can pin light as well. And I'll talk about that in 1 second. But 2 lightweight stands. So this is where I'm not using C stands for like events like this. I'm generally going with lightweight stands, things I can place in the corner that are not going to be obnoxious, okay? Backup batteries, plenty of memory cards, that's what you need, and backup batteries for your lights as well. Again, everything I'm recommending is not plug-in lights. These are all battery-powered lights because we need them for location work. It's so much more convenient. Okay. On the modifier side, you'll notice that the corporate event starter kit is very much kind of identical to basically the wedding kit, right? The MagSphere 2, this is for your on-camera flash. We want to be able to use this for indoor event bounce. The Mag Bounce 2, this would be to have on hand for outdoor events, right? If it's an outdoor event, I need to have something that's going to push light forward. Or if you have like a large elevated ceiling, colored ceilings, that kind of stuff as well. The Mag Grid is for pinning and light control. So when I have speakers, sometimes when you have speakers, there is light that they've already done that they put on them. But in a scene like this, I didn't have any light on these speakers and the light on them looked terrible. So I actually added my own pinned light to them just so that way they kind of stood out from the scene. And so I had a nicer look to the images I was creating. So a grid to be able to pin that light, okay? Pro correction gels, again, because we're often working in tungsten environments just like this one. So I'm putting on a CTO, a color temperature orange gel, so that way I can match the light so it looks nice, uniform. We don't get crazy oranges and whatnot. This is the starter kit. What I would also recommend on this side is a shoot through umbrella, and you can get any of them, like a $20 one off Amazon is totally fine. Can you use a mag box for this? Absolutely. The only thing is for me is that when it comes to events and like on the go type, conferences and things, I love the mag box. It's just a little bit large. So carrying it around, if you don't mind, that's totally fine. But if you kind of want something smaller, and I don't need typically the grid and the additional light control that I would get from the mag box, I would get, obviously better quality, better control out of that. But for me, when it comes to events, I'm kind of leaning more towards the portability and the form factor of this. So I would go kind of shoot through umbrella on that side. Okay, same thing. I gave you an AI prompt on this side as well. These are really fun to use. I'm gonna let you play with these on your own, but let me know what you think about it. I hope this video was incredibly helpful. We will link up everything that we use below. And of course, I think one of the things that I forgot to mention was actually, we're gonna make this guide available to you. So you can download the guide, look in the description below with all the other information, and you can actually download the guide that I've created for you so that way you can grab those prompts easily. You can have the recipe and gear guides, all of that. Hope you all enjoyed. We'll see you in the next video. Peace.